Hello and welcome to the HaxtonKnits channel. My name is Deanna. I'm a master knitter living in Okinawa, Japan. If you don't know me, this channel, it's all about knitting and my life here in Okinawa. And this week, we're talking about socks. Yep, all about socks. I'm continuing my series of all my favorite things. So I've got my favorite sock pattern of all time, my favorite sock yarn, my favorite designer, and some of the many sock patterns I've knit over the years. And if you stick around to the end of the sock knitting section, I've got a special treat. Oh yeah, it's my least favorite sock of all time. Some of you have watched this channel for a while, might be able to guess what that is. So maybe leave a mark down in the down bar. Let me know if you can guess what my least favorite sock ever was. For the Life in Okinawa section, I've been doing a little bit of snorkeling off the grid, away from some of the more populated and well-known snorkel sites, and I take a visit to the Ryukyu glass factory. As many of you know, I've been doing a series on all of my favorite patterns, and I mentioned in my sweater video, which I'll link above, that I really love to knit very busy things. I like color work and cables and complicated things that are going to keep me entertained while I knit, but I don't always wear them. I tend to want to wear a little bit more muted, more subtle, more plain clothing. And I think I make up for that with my socks. I really love a all over color work sock, a cabled sock, twisted stitches, bright self-striping yarns, neon, gold, sparkle, all the things. And I think that's going to be pretty obvious here. But in contrast, my favorite sock pattern, the one I've knit the most out of any other sock pattern, is actually really plain, and it is the Vanilla is the New Black pattern. This is by Anna, and I have knit it at least 3 times that I can think of, and always with some very bright, fun yarns. But if you've never seen this sock, it's a very interesting heel. The heel technique, you, instead of a short row or a flap, you make sort of a diamond where you increase and then decrease in ribbing. It makes a really nice detail to the back of your foot, and I find that it fits me really well, hence I've knit it several times. But this is definitely a sock pattern that benefits from some really entertaining yarn. I mean, who doesn't love some self-striping yarn, or just something that's going to keep you interested while you're knitting? And my favorite yarn is by the White Birch Fiber Company. It's their 80/20 sock yarn. And what I love about this company are their colorways, their self-striping ones. So twice I've knit this. One was in Mr. Yuck was the colorway, and it's a green and black self-striping. And the other one, I don't think I can say the name of the colorway on Ravelry. You can look that up. It was my, in my Ravelry queue, they're called my traveling socks because I took them all over Germany with me when I was visiting. But the colorway itself is a beautiful rainbow, and it looks like blue sky between the rainbow sections. So you've got like a nice sky blue with little pops of white that look like clouds. Highly recommend both the pattern and the yarn. I've also knit this in Lemonade Shop yarn. They make a stunning rainbow yarn, the whole collection of rainbows, where it's mainly a solid color, and then it's got these little sort of micro stripes of rainbows or other colorways. Okay, so you've got my favorite pattern, my favorite yarns. We'll narrow it down to 2. It's really hard to pick a favorite. I also really like Patton's Croix for like just hard wearing, durable, last you the rest of your life socks. I admit that I didn't know I had a favorite sock designer until I started like gathering information for this video, and then I realized almost all of my favorites are by the same person. So my favorite designer of all time, this is General Hogbuffer, and they're all published on Ravelry under the House of Hogbuffer, and I have no idea if this is a man or a woman or a non-binary, or I don't know who designs these, but every single one of the socks I want to knit, and I think you'll see why as I start scrolling through these. You've got color work, you've got cables and twisted stitches and all the things that I love. A lot of the patterns are named in a different language, so I'm just going to put the names in as they scroll by, and you can appreciate them and go check them out all by yourself. I know that some of these have shown up in Sock Madness, so you may have seen them there. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Sock Madness is a recurring event that happens on Ravelry. It's a speed knitting competition for sock knitters. And if you hear that and say, that's not for me, you might be surprised. They actually do a really good job of breaking people into groups based on their skill level and based on the amount of time that they actually can put forth into knitting for a competition. And as a result, I have accumulated a large number of sock patterns because every year you participate, as long as you put in reasonable effort, you end up getting a lot of free sock patterns and potentially winning prizes. And my next two favorite socks come straight out of that collection. Oh gosh, side tangent. Whenever I see the name House of Hogbuffer, it reminds me of the first pattern I put up for sale. I was so nervous about it. So my first pattern up was the Resurrection Pass hat, which I'll link to somewhere here. And I knit that for the Master Knitter program. I ended up putting it up for sale when I didn't submit it in for my final project. And I was so nervous about submitting a pattern that I made up a pseudonym. That's right. My first pattern was published under Dan Marino Designs. I thought that was really clever and really cute. Like Dan Marino, like the football player, but like, you know, spelled like the sheep. You're right. Is there much overlap in like the football world and the knitting world? I'm sure at least a few of you know who I'm talking about when I mention Dan Marino. But alas, I eventually sobered up and thought to myself, you know, all of my favorite knitting designers, like I know their names, right? Like you've got Stephen West and Andrea Mowry and Uni Jang and like all of these really great knitters, and you know them by name. And I eventually came back around, and hence the HaxtonKnits channel. Let's get back on track. So next up, this sock turned out to be the perfect intersection of my love of like busy patterns and like bright self-striping yarn. This is the Lacy Not Lazy sock, which I knit again during Sock Madness. And I knit this in... The yarn is Crafting My Chaos, and it's their self-striping yarn, and the color is Rainbow Sherbet. And boy, these socks like live up to that. Every time I see them, I think like, oh yeah, they're cotton candy Rainbow Sherbet overload. But they are a beautiful, beautiful mix of like stranded colorwork and cables together. They look stunning when they're all finished, and I just love the contrast between the self-striping yarn and then my contrast I used with some leftover merino in the color merino? No, not merino. Some leftover Malabrigo sock yarn in the colorway Pearl. Next up are the Capella socks by Kaja Fredrickson. These are most likely going to be the next pair of socks that I cast on. They are just a lovely rustic looking pair of socks in a relatively simple color work. I think what really makes these socks is the yarn, which unfortunately I think has been discontinued. It was a BFL Gotland DK, and it looked like it was not treated or superwash in any way. It appears to be all in natural undyed colors, so like a rich chocolate brown, gray, and natural white. And oh gosh, I think the only thing holding me back really is that I don't have a yarn that's really appropriate for these socks. Okay, let's be honest. All of the sock yarn in my stash is like neon, rainbow, parade, sparkles, explosion. I don't tend to buy plain sock yarn all that often. So I do think I'll have to special order some yarn for this project. But I personally like to have machine washable socks. That's just me. I don't really want to hand wash my socks. I'll lovingly hand wash all of my sweaters and blankets and everything else. But the socks I need to be able to just chuck in the wash. And so I think these will actually end up being maybe some Patton's Croy or some other similar sock yarn that I know is going to be tough and hold up just forever. I cannot wait to cast these guys on. Look at them. I mean, they're stunning. Next pattern. Okay, so we go from like, basically that was my most recent pair of favorited socks. I think it was published in January of 2001. Let's go way back in time to like the first favorited sock in my queue. This is from way back in 2007, and it was published in knitty.com. This is the Clepsydra, and they are I mean, they're kilt socks. That's what they are, right? They're these beautiful knee-high cabled socks. I love everything about them, and I really don't know why I haven't cast them on. Gosh, this is kind of why I have loved making these videos, is because I'm just realizing like why I fell in love with all these patterns. As I talk about them and tell you about them, they just kind of like remind me why I want to cast them on and give me so much inspiration to get these going. My next favorite pattern, also from the Wayback Time Machine, these are the first pair of colorwork socks that I ever knit. That might be a lie. Actually, I think there are some colorwork socks that I knit when I was living in North Dakota that definitely did not like go up and over my heel and didn't fit. So just tip from me to you, if you have knit socks before and are dipping your feet into colorwork, colorwork doesn't stretch. It doesn't stretch the way a regular stockinette stitch material does. So actually do your gauge swatch, read the pattern. You're probably going to have to either go up a needle size or add more stitches than you're used to. So yeah, colorwork socks, they take a little bit of time to get used to, but I definitely remember casting on these. They're the cat socks. Cute little colorwork cats on the top, and what kills me is the foot, which has a little cat paw print. You know, I'm the crazy cat lady. So these are another fun pair of socks that I knit. Oh gosh, I think I knit these while I was visiting Texas years and years and years ago. And I remember that I didn't like the yarn that I used before, so I actually like knit the whole sock. I think I was watching the Super Bowl. There's a lot of football this episode. Anyway, knit the whole sock, didn't love it, ended up pulling it back and never re-knitting it again. So these guys are gonna have to come back for a revisit sometime soon. Why are some of these patterns so hard to say? Okay, next on the list, the La Calacas Danzantes socks. God, why? Guys, why? Why don't we all speak the same language and name patterns and easily to pronounce things? Or, you know, like put phonetic guides. These socks, I love them. They were published in the Anti-Craft by, I think 2008 is when they came out. And they're just a really fun pair of calf length socks. They have, they remind me of Day of the Dead, right? So they have like little skeletons with brightly colored top hats and some stripes. These are knit in, oh, it's a 4-ply alpaca yarn. And I think it's really stunning. Oh gosh, that reminds me of a tale of woe. Tale of woe. Speaking of alpaca yarn, so I participated in the Sock Madness. We talked about that already. There was a sock that I really loved and wore often. It's the Echoes pattern. But when I was getting ready to start knitting, I didn't have another ball of yarn, like sock yarn, that was good for the pattern. So I grabbed something else that I had, which was one of the Marisol yarns. I think it was Sulca Legato, which is not a superwash yarn. And I paired it with the Patons Croix, which is, and knit them and wore them all the time and loved them, and then promptly forgot that they aren't both sock washable friendly yarns. And they are ruined. They are gone. Oh, they're really, it hurts my heart because they were a really nice pair of socks. It's funny because when you look at them, they're not that interesting. It's kind of a sort of repetitive all over colorwork pattern, but they were definitely my favorite pair of house slippers. I wore them all the time when I lived in a cold weather place. So alas, I'm gonna have to re-knit those sometime soon. All right, I got time for one more favorite sock pattern. This is also a Sock Madness pattern. All right, last pattern up. This is Coffee Cantata. It is also another designer that I know through the Sock Madness program. I think this one was originally the 10th season of Sock Madness. The designer is Kaua Coffee, who participates in a lot of the Sock Madness events, so you've probably seen some of her sock patterns before. But what I love about this pattern, okay, first because of the sample, it's knit in this green color that you guys know I love. I love me like a chartreuse or a lime green. It's my wheelhouse. But the cables are really, they're like delicate and beautiful. I love when a pattern isn't just like all over the same cable and like straight up and down. I like cables that add to the shape of the finished object. There's a couple of garment patterns I'm thinking of too, where the cables like really are flattering because they shape Not so much with the sock, but I do love the way that like the ankle of the sock is accentuated by the way the cables are shaped. And of course, this is knit in Dream in Color Smushy. I don't actually know that yarn. Have you knit with that yarn? Tell me below if it's a good yarn, and maybe I will buy some for my next episode. And for those of you who hung out all the way till the end of the knitting section, I know this was a lot. Here is my least favorite pattern for socks ever. The first thing I want to say is there's nothing wrong with this pattern. The pattern is written well. The sock turned out great. The problem is it's an Argyle sock, right? Did you guess that? Those of you who put your comments below. I have griped about this before, about having to knit the Argyle sock for the Master Knitter program. Argyle, if you're not familiar with it, come on, you're all knitters here, you're familiar with it, but really became fashionable sort of my parents' generation, and there was a lot of like Argyle golf sweaters, and I think of like knee-high Argyle socks and things like that. Gosh, oh, God bless the knitters of that generation. If you guys were all knitting Argyle, I'm so sorry. So Argyle socks, these in particular, they're knit flat, so you can do your Argyle. I'd use two colors. I use like that chartreuse green that I like, and a kind of charcoaly gray to make my diamonds. And then the pattern gives you the option to either do the diagonal lines also in Argyle, or to come back later and add them in, which is what I chose to do. So after doing simple Argyle diamonds, I came back and duplicate stitched in the black accent lines. So you do that all flat, and then you eventually sew the sock up the back. And when I turned this into the Master Knitter program, I said, if they make me knit this sock again, like if they find something wrong and say I have to knit it again, I'm quitting the whole program, because I just didn't enjoy it. And my sock passed, and to this day, it is a lonely single sock. There will never be a second Argyle sock. I really should finish them so I could wear them. No, no, I'm not going to do it. It's going to stay in its binder, neat and put away. I've mentioned the Master Knitter program a lot here. You guys hear about it a lot, but if you are new to my channel, because I've had quite a few new subscribers lately. Hi, everyone. I got some people coming to me from the Knitting with Cat Hair podcast. Hi, welcome to the channel, but I will put a link above. There is an episode I did way back in episode 3 talking about the Master Knitter program. It is a little bit rough. My video skills and editing skills have come together a little bit better, I hope. Hopefully a little bit better in the years since then. Let me just give you a quick check-in on what's been on my needles lately, because I feel like I haven't done that, and then we'll move on to the Life in Okinawa section. Longtime viewers of this channel, one day I will be able to stop talking about this project. This is my Orenburg worm shawl. I will link above the episode where I start talking about this, but I took a class on Orenburg knitting, talking about the cottage industry of knitting coming out of Orenburg, Russia. That class is available on Interweave Knits. And with it came the pattern for an Orenburg warm shawl, which is knit in pieces. So this is one of the borders. You knit 4 borders, and then you connect them all together and knit the inside. And I actually have 3 of these done now. One, you can't really see 2, 3. And I'm starting to finally get an idea of just how monster of a project this is going to be. This is the best way to show this off for you guys, right? There you go. You do 11 repeats of the chart on each of these sections, which means I've done it 33 times, and I still screw it up. And I still haven't really gotten the hang of it, and I definitely don't have it memorized. So I'm very much looking forward to being done with these border sections and moving on to the rest of them. Right now, I have 1 more border to do, and I have this much of it done. So soon, it takes me, I don't know, about... If I'm off work and really knitting, it takes me about 4 days to get through each of these borders. So I'm really having some respect for the people who did this as a living. They must knit much faster than me and dedicate a lot more time to knitting than I am doing. And of course, here is my excellent cone of alpaca yarn. This is Gist yarn. I bought a kilogram of it. It cost me about $95 US. And I've been enjoying hauling this around with me, but I've really been enjoying not having to join any yarns. And so far I have found no breaks in this. This is really lovely quality, except for when my cat decides to chew through it and I have to, you know, deal with my own breaks. So that is in progress. I put some pictures up on Instagram of that for you guys to see. And I actually have an FO for you. Let's see if you can see this. Dun, da, da, da. So the last time you saw this, I was on the bottom hem and it didn't look like it looks right now because I repeated this pattern over and over and over again through the body of it and was doing a double knit hem incorporating these crosses. Well, I tried that on and it just wasn't looking very flattering. So I went ahead and pulled all of it out from the bottom hem up to here and then re-knit it again. I am making this short sleeve or kind of 3/4 sleeve just because it is so warm. So this yarn, it's #Air by Wister Yarn. So this is a Japanese sort of big box company. And the pattern itself, okay, so the stitch pattern, this color work is of course the Tecumseh pattern by Caitlin Hunter, but the actual pattern is the Metropolis pattern and it's by Tanis Lavelli of Tanis Fiber Arts. It is a free pattern up on Ravelry. I picked it because it was the right gauge for what I wanted. And originally I thought I was just kind of very loosely use it. But I ended up following it pretty closely. I really liked the large amount of ribbing at the bottom. I did incorporate a couple of short rows. You probably won't be able to tell, but basically I kind of did shirt sleeves. So I did on the front side some short rows and on the back side some short rows so that it's sort of higher up at the hip and then dips down in the middle. And then I omitted the giant turtleneck that the pattern calls for and just did a couple of rows of 1x1 rib and a sewn bind off. As always, I love me a tubular sewn bind off. I just think it looks really, really nice and finished. So excited to have this off the needles, excited for it to eventually be cold enough to wear it again. It actually turned out really, really cute and I've enjoyed working on that. So I have a lot left over and I might make something else because it was really fun. That is all the knitting I have for you. I'm going to move on to life in Okinawa. All right, Okinawa. First of all, yes, the hair is different. There you go, guys. The last time I went to a hair salon, we had, well, I had a little bit of a communication problem, and that was that I don't speak Japanese and my hairdresser didn't speak English. And even though I brought pictures, he somehow made my hair orange. I'll put a picture here so you can appreciate that. I've been trying to grow that orange out for a long time and finally just got sick of it and chopped a lot of hair off and then just put some semi-permanent color on to hopefully help ease the transition back to a somewhat normal hair color. So hope you guys like that. I'm looking very shiny today, which is nice. Anyway, we have been doing a ton of snorkeling. It is that time of year. It's late summer and the days are sweltering. So the only thing I really want to do is get in the water and swim. And my favorite thing to do is to try to find sort of hidden beaches that I don't know the name of and I don't know, what they're going to look like. I like to get on the Google Maps and like zoom in and see if I can see any reef near the beaches to see if it would be good snorkeling. And so that's what we did this week. My husband and I just looked at a beach on an island near me. This is Miyagi-jima or Miyagi Island, and found what looked like a nice beach with a road that led up to it, and we just drove out there. It ended up being in the middle of a farmer's field, and we parked our car and walked down the hill, and it was just this stunning hidden cove. And we weren't the only ones there. There were some locals swimming there too. I feel like Google Maps has kind of ruined the hidden locals only beach, like the places that only the locals know about, because now I can zoom in with my satellite view and find them all. You've seen some benefits of this before here on this channel. I know I had an episode where I showed a bunch of videos of the little crabs skittering along the ocean. Those are all also from a little hidden beach on Miyagi-jima, but a separate one. That one also, you kind of like parked in the jungle and walked down this like drainage ditch to find it. And that's common for me. I spend a lot of time digging around in the woods and finding trails and getting lost. Something great about Okinawa is that when you do that, you find things. So this week, as I was tramping through the jungle, I also found this old bunker. Okinawa has a very complicated history, especially with the Battle of Okinawa and World War II. And this was a Japanese air raid bunker that was built during World War II. And just really cool. There's nothing really, well, I didn't go all the way back in there. It's kind of scary. It's really dark. I'm literally using like my phone camera flash to take video of this for you guys. And it's kind of cool because there's a moss or a mold growing that's like super shiny and reflective, as you can see. But around the island, there are lots of places where you can just find these old remnants of World War II and also remnants of old villages, shrines, all sorts of things. So that's what we got up to this week. And in my quest to find something new to show you, I also took a visit over to the Ryukyu Glass Factory, or is it Glass Village? Ryukyu Glass Village. This is like Instagram paradise. Like the road is really cute and bright and there's lots of places to take photos. I think during the non-pandemic era, they do a lot of tours and tourist groups through there too. But what's really cool, even though all of like the tours were shut down, the store itself that sells all the glassware is still open, and where the artists actually work is open air, so you can watch. So while I was there, there were men working, blowing gas. Oh man, bless them. It was so hot that day, and I can't even imagine standing next to that blast furnace. Honestly, it was a little bit drier next to where they were blowing the glass. I'm assuming like the heat from the furnace burns up some of the moisture or something, but it was still pretty awful. So I'm going to show you some videos of that. I did end up buying some things. So I like to buy very practical things that I'm going to use, and you guys know me, I like beer. So these are some locally made beer mugs, and they've got little teeny flecks of glow-in-the-dark stuff in them. I also bought a nice little jar for olive oil to set on the kitchen counter. Guys, is the glow-in-the-dark stuff like uranium? Is it going to kill me? You guys can let me know, but really cute beer mugs. They have a huge store, which I will put pictures of and video of now for your video enjoyment. I think that's all I have for you this week. So as always, you can find me on Instagram and Ravelry as HaxtonKnits, and I look forward to seeing you next time.